What's the kind of key ways that you maintain that supply chain resilience?
Understand the business, understand the market needs, then we can have a proper strategy in terms of the freight situation itself.
If you had to give a procurement team 3 pieces of advice for kind of staying ahead of the game, this kind of A, B, C, D, E, F, G plans, and not just resilient but ready, what would your 3 pieces of advice be? Welcome to The Freight Debate, the ultimate destination for supply chain professionals, logistics leaders, and anyone who's ever wondered what really keeps the world moving. I'm Phil Hennessy, and with me today, I'm delighted to have Martha Christina talking about how procurement professionals balance speed, safety, and spend in global gas supply chains. Welcome to Martha. Martha is an accomplished procurement leader with over a decade of experience driving multi-million-dollar sourcing strategies across Southeast Asia, with Indonesia being a key market. She specialises in indirect equipment and CapEx categories and has consistently delivered significant savings and operational excellence while leading cross-country teams and ensuring compliance, safety and quality standards in global companies, including Linde, Ecolab and Unilever. Quite an introduction. Welcome, Martha. Great to have you on the Freight Debate. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking, Phil. How are you?
Wonderful. Yeah, well, I'm fantastic because I think we're going to have a great episode of the Freight Debate. I think there's going to be some insights that we maybe not had on this podcast before. So thank you very much for joining us and offering to share your insights. If I could just start, we mentioned in that intro that you drive multi-million-dollar sourcing strategies across Southeast Asia. Could you tell us a little bit more about the key responsibilities of your role in procurement for our viewers and listeners, and how you collaborate with other functions, whether that's logistics or finance, to keep the kind of supply chains running smoothly in what is probably not always an easy thing to do in the current world?
Procurement typically will be under supply chain organizations, or maybe in some cases company it will under finance. But I mean the key responsibility definitely how to maintain then the span of the category that we are handling, be it indirect category or maybe equipment or capex. There will be a certain limit at the very best price, and then definitely how then we deliver in terms of quality, good quality, and of course in a timely manners. So that will be the key responsibility. The category can be different for every procurement professional, but then it's the key point which will be sourcing will be the main responsibility. On top of course, the compliance. We are part of compliance as well, and then also how then we maintain costs, which then will relate to finance. Then our key stakeholders definitely how to make sure business is delivered by making sure that the goods or the materials delivered within the quality as required, and then within the price, and of course within the time that is expected. Business will be our main focus, definitely how then we deliver, make sure that business is delivered through supply chain, through collaboration with finance, and then of course within the framework compliance framework. Phil.
Yeah, sure, and thank you for that. It sounds an extremely interesting, if not extremely challenging, role that you've got. With it sounds like there's a lot of plates spinning at the same time for you to stay on top of, and lots of different work streams. But you mentioned there that different procurement professionals will have different kind of considerations and responsibilities. Within your role, what has changed? How have the challenges changed in, say, the last 5 years? Do you approach things in a very different way now than maybe you did 5 years, and what's the reason for that?
I think if we start with the macro factor in terms of the challenges that procurement professional is facing as of now, definitely the geopolitical condition that we are having as of now. We know about the Russia situation, Russia-Ukraine war situation, then Red Sea. So that all not only making a supply chain disruption, but also definitely impact on the pricing itself. It's a very high volatile market. If we talk about then freight first, we know that with this limitation, with these challenges that we are having on the geopolitical condition, then definitely we usually just have like 1 month to deliver from Europe to Indonesia, for example. But now it become minimum 3 months, 2 to 3 months. Depends on the location of the exporting country. That one only it already giving us a big challenge in terms of providing material to the supply chain. The second one definitely pricing. So what we planned last year, it will be really different for this year. So this volatile market, not only I'm talking about the yearly movement of the price, but it also can be very different. Maybe last month to this month, for the same route. So that one is a challenge that we face compared to 5 years ago. And then if we talk about the in the country specific or in terms of regional, we face a lot of regulatory challenge as well. So in country level, we might see that there is uncertainty in terms of the regulation. And then let's say back then, last 2 years, if the government changed, the leader changed, and then the regulation also changed. So this one is very difficult for us to keep up with all this change, not only after the changes happens, but also then how government communicate to the practitioner that there's a chance on this, then how then we keep up with all this information. So definitely that's the area that, at least for Indonesia, that what we are facing. Maybe in the other country, in the Southeast Asia, I face also maybe in Vietnam, it will be a typical situation as well. But I mean specifically the one that the role that I'm being responsible as of now, Indonesia, we're facing that a lot. Then I will say also it's very specific about industry, because I from chemicals, very specific liquid chemical, that now I'm handling on the gases as well. It's about how then we need to return the packaging, because we can't keep or store the gases, I mean, recklessly. Definitely there is a certain minimum standard that we need to maintain, we need to comply. Then all this packaging, all these cylinders, after we use in country, then we need to export back. So we need to re-export back to the exporting country. So this kinds of situation give us a very complex situation in supply chain. Whereas we know that during the transit, because it's gases, right? Sometimes, not sometimes, but for a very particular molecule of gases, the losses will be there. There will be a gas hissing. So then we're losses our product during the transit. So that's the challenge that we are facing if we compare from the last 5 years, Phil.
I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? And those unique challenges to this specific sector. When you talk about returning the equipment and the loss of gas in transit, is that an environmental or a financial kind of consideration, or is it both?
Unlike other industries, companies that handling, the industrial gases is itself, definitely, we are expected to return the drums and the cylinder. It's a very high cost capex investment, because cylinders or ISO tanks, it is something that being capitalized and then earlier from the industry. So we need to return back to the exporting country. Oh, definitely, it's carbon footprint issue, because so many freight movement from exporting country, maybe from Europe, from China, from India to Indonesia, and then we return back to the other country. So it's the environmental reason. Definitely, if we if we just dispose the packaging, it's not possible in terms of finance as well, and then environmental back again, it will be a waste. But it's also in terms of the cost itself, by returning back additional costs that will be calculated to the product that we manufacture locally.
So in terms of margins and such, like, all these kind of additional costs, whether it's the equipment or this is all part of ensuring that you move the product as cost efficiently as possible, isn't it? Because all of these things add up. That's the secret ingredient, isn't it, to your business?
Correct. So that's why then the product itself during the transit, we need to find the shortest, the fastest route possible. Be it then we go with air freight if that the condition, because the product then the losses will be much higher compared to the percentage of the freight itself. So yeah, delays in transshipment can lead to the gas losses. That will be the condition. So in terms of supply chain, then procurement, we need to find a strategy to change our source from outside the regional, from outside the country, and then we are under pressure to localize the manufacturing.
That must have its own challenges for you in terms of localizing suppliers. Does it increase the number of suppliers that you have, and then you have more agreements to kind of work on a daily basis, and you're constantly talking about price with local suppliers and renegotiating and realigning supply chains and all of this kind of stuff? If you just have one supplier, then it's pretty, I'm not saying easy, but it's more straightforward on a day-to-day basis than if you're constantly searching for local suppliers and reimagining your supply chains and supplier groups.
For very specific molecules, then we can develop a supplier to have the gases manufactured locally. But I mean, for a very specific, the other specific molecules, because there's regulation, some country can't manufacture, it's not allowed, it's prohibited to produce those molecules, then we need to find to the other countries. But we always manage, try to find suppliers that can produce within the region itself. So and then in terms of freight, then the losses will be much reduced. Phil, yeah.
And reliability, I suppose, as well. The reliability of your, not the reliability of your supplier as well, isn't it?
Yeah, agree. That's also the aim. So to make sure that we have a reliable supply chain through having this localized suppliers or regionalized suppliers. Yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit more in terms of kind of the multimodal nature of transport, ocean and air, and the types of tools that you use to manage those modes efficiently?
Let's say if we can't find a local supply, and then whereas this molecule that we need to import as soon as possible, because at the end, the image to our customers, not only about that, but that also our molecules, it's something that also serve a greater purpose itself, like serving humanity, and then make sure that there is safety is being delivered to the country. So it's not only about the image, but beyond that, because it's humanity, safety, etc. Then we need to consider that if we stick only with the sea freight, then we lost our product, we lost our image to the customer, we lost to the humanity, safety, etc. Then we can go with the speed, which then fall into our decision to go with air freight. So this one definitely we will review everything that we can do. Many tools that we can use. Typically, we will use a market intelligence on understanding where the source comes from, and then what kind of freight that can provide it to us by these suppliers, maybe via sea freight route or maybe air freight route. And then definitely market intelligence. So now with the with the technology, we know apps, many apps that can provide some good players. We know that Seneta also provide all these information routes plus the cost itself, and then also bulletin. So we are also being supplied by our partner freight forwarders on the monthly, weekly information of the freight situation, market condition. So we can prepare in advance about the market condition. Maybe we need to stock, or maybe we can soften a bit in terms of keeping the stock. So yeah, definitely those tools are very
I suppose it's the balance, isn't it? Because if air freight is faster or more efficient in some ways in terms of making sure you have your product where it needs to be at the time it needs to be, but there is a payoff there, which is higher cost to move by air freight. So presumably you have to look at ocean and air and weigh up all of these. No, it's not just cost, is it? It's everything else. So if it was just cost, you'd just ship by ocean all the time, wouldn't you? But yeah. So I suppose it is. It's not. It's not an exact kind of science. It must take a lot of your personal judgment as well to be able to balance all of these factors.
So, but it really depends on the industry itself. Some industry that is not molecule losses sensitive, for example, like gases, definitely hissing can happen during the transit. Then that's the cost that we need to pay. Freight. Speed is definitely the one that we are looking at. But sometimes for the typical industry that is not very sensitive on the molecule losses, as long as the planning can be done in advance, like, okay, by this time we need this material with this quantity, then I believe we can avoid those increasing on price. So understand the business, understand the market needs, then we can have a proper strategy in terms of the freight situation itself. Yeah.
That was one thing I was going to ask you, actually. And this must require very good communication internally within your business to explain we need to move these molecules or these gases or these products by air rather than ocean. And yes, it may cost more per ton or whatever it may be, or per canister or whatever it is. But actually, you need to explain that, don't you, internally as to why you've made that decision and why it costs this much, but actually what the benefits are.
Yep, correct. So definitely stakeholders engagement is very critical, very crucial. A very close coordination with supply chains that specifically will be our planner, and then how then we talk to our logistics saying that with a certain time, instead of we go with this mode, can we go with this type of transportation mode? And then definitely at the end will be finance, because finance will be the one that bring all these numbers into P&L, and then saying that okay, we go this higher with this certain percentage increase, but that at the end the revenue will maintain at this number. So those information needs to be delivered to our stakeholders very precisely about the decision that we need to make in terms of the execution.
Yeah, really interesting. We mentioned at the start, well, you did, around kind of the macro factors at play, and it's probably fair to say, isn't it, that the world is a pretty kind of volatile place, and presumably the sector that you're in is quite sensitive to a lot of these macro factors, whether it's geopolitical conflict or climate or whatever it may be, but particularly kind of geopolitical conflict or economic fallout from that. How do you manage that? Do you wake up in the morning and turn on the TV and think, oh my God, what's next? What's next, and how is it going to impact me getting my products around the world?
I believe those situations that we are facing as a procurement as of now with the volatile market, that causing us very high costs in terms of the freight. So freight will lead to the higher cost of the product itself, and then how then we will sell to our client at the end. So then freight cost is definitely something that is very important and it's very challenging for us to make a proper budget. But I will say that we go with there is so many models, but we will go with the models of like last 5 years models. Then we will end up with like 10% higher or 20% higher in terms of the cost itself. So there will be a certain buffer then for us during this condition. Then at the end, if during the execution time, then we will do a correction whether the budget that we prepared last year will be valid. Yeah. So what I'm saying that we'll go with conservative models, which means that we will look at the 5 years trend with this all the volatile market that we are having since COVID day time, minimum 3 years, and then we see during the Ukraine how high then it can be, and then we go with average. I mean, there is so many models we can go, but a certain models that we pick in it's very conservative, like looking at all the last 5 years trend and then make it a justified numbers for our budgeting. Yeah.
It's really interesting, and presumably that goes back to this stakeholder management as well, in terms of you create your budget, but then you can't do anything about a Russia-Ukraine conflict, can you? You can't do anything about if there's something that's impacting the Gulf region, in terms of supply chains from there. You can't do anything about that, can you? As an individual, clearly. So the only thing you can do is react to those situations. And again, presumably it's the internal communication, whether it's with finance, to say, yes, this is the budget, but actually this is what's happened. These are the macro impacts, and it's being able to explain why the budget has changed from what it was to this is now the cost.
Correct. Yeah. So stakeholder management, but I will say that that with all this volatility as well, we need to convey then to our client as well. I mean, sales team, because the one that will be impacted is at the end our client, the one that we are serve our product, selling our product, and then serve our customers. I mean, typically there will be an understanding on this situation from our stakeholders, because it's something that we can't control. It's a macro condition. Then, like you mentioned, then we need to react upon that condition. I feel, yeah.
And so that we've discussed the kind of cost implication there around budgeting and how the budget can change or change slightly, or possibly in the case of the Ukraine situation radically. Putting the cost side of things to one side, how do you respond in the face of these macro events from an operational point of view? So let's say there is a conflict that escalates in a particular region. What's the kind of key ways that you maintain that supply chain resilience?
Maybe next year, we don't know what will happen. Maybe next 2 years, we don't know.
Maybe tomorrow, in an hour.
Maybe tomorrow, yeah. So then we will go back to the earlier sourcing strategy that every industry, every organization needs to have, is to have a robust and resilient supply chain. So what that means, let's say area A having a conflict, that a certain route is being stopped and then there is no supply from that area. And so it is very critical to identify before the situation happen. Then what is our backup? What is our plan B, plan C, plan D? Those that something that I think it's a very key responsibility of procurement professional to make sure that we are not rely on a certain suppliers, but we have tier 2, tier 3 for our molecules. It's something that it's our DNA. Procurement DNA must have those mindset that okay, something happens in this area, then can I have those molecules from the other supply? But that's not only procurement. We need a collaboration then with our supply chain, because a certain formula will change as well, because this raw material change, definitely a typical of the products will change as well. The characteristics of the product will change. So I mean, then we need support from our supply chain to accept those change in the formula, because we need to change our suppliers. And then of course, then how then we communicate to our client, let's say that with this recent condition, if there is any change in the characteristic of our products due to the change of the raw material itself, then we need to communicate with our client itself. But then, yes, definitely having a robust suppliers, supply chain, what is it called? That it's very critical. I mean, to anticipate what happened next in the next year, next 2 to 3 years.
I imagine you can't, when something happens, and I'll use the kind of Ukraine's Russia situation as an example again. There's an inevitable adverse impact that can't be avoided. So it's not a case of being able to mitigate that situation 100%. Presumably, it's about just finding the best plan B, or if you can't do plan B, plan C, and if you can't do plan C, plan D, and then all the way through to whatever you need. So, is there any kind of an acceptance that it's just having the data to make the best decision that you can, with an acceptance that maybe there's going to be adverse impacts, and then you have to communicate with your suppliers and your customers, and it's that kind of overall kind of holistic kind of approach, I suppose.
That's then the definition of resilience itself. Plan A fail, go to plan B. Plan B fail and go to plan C. I mean, we try our best on how then we don't have disruption in our supply chain process. Yeah.
How do you kind of, on a day-to-day basis now? So do you kind of, are you looking for, how do you find the time to do the planning when you're kind of dealing with the here and now? You have to get that balance right. So you need to know what your plan E is and your F and G and H. Well, that takes time, doesn't it, to have that resilience in place and have all these different digital twins set up, or different suppliers or alternatives. But also, I imagine you've got a lot on your plate today after this call to deal. So there's from a professional point of view, for a procurement kind of expert like yourself, there must be a balance there in terms of how you use your time between the here and now and resilience planning.
I will say that the priority must be set. It means that the goal must be set that, okay, this is what we are planning in terms of having a resilient supply chain. I speak, to very narrow about this one, whether we are going to leverage with our regional procurement sourcing and then help us develop all this our vision to go to the next 2 to 3 years on having a resilient market, resilient supply chain. But then, as you mentioned, if we just go with the daily operational things, because I'm a country procurement anyway, right? And then, but shifting our focus into the more resilience, be it that we leverage our volumes, our needs with our regional sourcing person, or then we put aside our dedicated resources to focus on this resilient market. But this is something that every organization needs to deliver. Every procurement professional needs to focus. Instead of firefighting for every problems, then before that fire come, before that storm come, then we prepare those resilient supply chain, Phil.
It takes a lot. I mean, I think not just a procurement professional, but myself or whoever, it takes a lot of self-discipline, doesn't it, to have that really kind of hard approach of, I'm not just going to firefight, I'm going to use data and intelligence to put resilience, plan B, C, D, E, F, G. You have to be really self-disciplined in your professional approach, don't you, to make sure that you don't just get focused over here on the firefighting when actually you need to split your time, don't you?
Definitely, that's something that I'm echoing your message on that. It's a collateral effort from everybody to make sure that the goal itself will be achieved. Then at the end, it will be a responsibility of everyone in the procurement organization next to the supply chain market with support from finance on supporting those ideas. Because when we talk about building a resilient supply chains, the process itself, maybe we need support from management to provide some capex, for example. Maybe we want to keep stocks. Then warehouse needs to be provided, for example. I mean, the case can be so many. But with those identified steps that require to achieve those visions, then it's a collaborative works by finance, by safety, to make sure that all this effort within the standard, within the guideline, and then of course from the definitely operations will be there, finance as well, to provide the support on the capex, for example, and then definitely a strong procurement as well, Phil.
We're kind of drawing kind of towards the end, but one question that really comes to mind when I listen to you talk is how critical your job is to just life and society, and in terms of how important the goods are that you move. And I apologize to anyone who's in kind of a watch industry, but you're not shipping something that's a nice to have kind of personal garment, or and I know that it's important to those businesses, but my point is the goods that you are transporting are critical to the way we live our lives and society and the structure and fabric of everything. So do you feel that responsibility of whether it's safety or just keeping the mechanics of life moving with the products that you move? Do you kind of feel that in the kind of importance of what you do as a business and personally?
I'll see it as a like a purpose instead of a burden, because
yeah,
correct, yeah, right. And so it will make the job will be more exciting, and then of course knowing that our organization produce gases like oxygen, nitrogen, that will be used in health industry, making people more. I mean, oxygen. We know oxygen. Although oxygen is free, but then the patient will use the oxygen itself. For example, nitrogen much used in F&B industry. So I found that the finding the purpose of producing this as organization, and then connecting that purpose into my daily job, making the job is much more exciting. And then of course it's something that we are looking forward every day, that the job that we are doing, what kind of role that the employee is working now, it really delivered to something.
No, that's really interesting. Okay, so I found it fascinating. I must say, it's it's a glimpse into something that I haven't kind of had much knowledge of before. But you understand how critical it is and how difficult it is. How kind of how reliant it is on technology and data and intelligence, and people like yourself and your experience. So just to round off this episode of the Freight Debate, if you had to give a procurement team 3 pieces of advice for kind of staying ahead of the game, this kind of A, B, C, D, E, F, G plans, and and not just resilient but ready, what would your 3 pieces of advice be?
Yeah. Value, that number one. So we are not the cost controller in terms of like pushing down the market, but actually we are delivering the value to the organization. So stick that in mind. That will goes to everything. Second one, then still work within the compliance framework, which means that we make sure everything within the rules, and then also the regulation, and then last but not least, of course, our DNA, that will be cost mindset. So value and cost can be all together, but that's why I put value first, and then compliance, and then having fun during your negotiation, during your time with suppliers. It's definitely something that you can work on. Yeah, I feel.
I'm convinced that people listening and watching this episode of the Freight Debate will find what you've said fascinating. I really do. Martha, thank you very much. It's been a real opener for me, and I hope for our viewers and listeners. All I need to say is thank you on behalf of Danetta and everyone in the team for joining us today. We've really enjoyed having you on.
Thanks, Phil.
And thank you for everyone for watching or listening to this episode of the Freight Debate. If you have enjoyed it, and I'm sure you have, please hit subscribe, join the debate, and let's move the industry forward together. Thank you very much, and see you on the next episode of the Freight Debate.